Hello and welcome once again to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the corner of curation and castration. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
Curt, what was that face about?
I leaned in my chair at a very inopportune time, and it made like a creaky...
You ruined my intro, is what you're saying?
I'm thinking the people heard the creaky old chair.
Mm-hmm.
This chair is old as shit. I don't know if anyone has ever... Most of you have not been to Black Gold Studios, a.k.a. my house.
Mm-hmm.
This chair is like... My grandfather used this chair when he was like on like the board of selectmen for Mechanic Falls. Like
that chair has been at the board of selectmen meeting for Mechanic Falls, you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a super old chair.
That chair's haunted, by the way. I guarantee it.
Yeah. It sounds haunted when you move in it. So
when you make the slightest move.
I believe it. It's my grandfather groaning.
Why are you sitting on me?
Sorry, Papa. Anyway. Sorry I ruined your intro.
That's all right. It's just an intro. It's just my biggest job.
I know.
I'll ruin your outro.
It's just what we do to get people excited about this episode.
Yeah, I'll ruin the plugs at the end. I'll just moan over them.
They know. Now everyone's
again.
tuned out. Yeah. Change your username. Keep them on their toes.
How you doing, Curtis?
I'm pretty good. It's a beautiful day outside.
It sure is.
Stupid nice out.
Yeah, it's the nicest day, and it feels like decades.
This past winter was like 10 years long.
Yeah,
it was a pretty stiff winter
for a lot of reasons. For me, it was a lengthy and meaningful winter.
I can think of one thing that was much less significant for me than you. What have you been up to?
Oh man, school today was weird.
Yeah?
Yeah, the nice weather. Tell you what comes out during the nice weather? Fucking wasps.
Oh my god.
Yeah, wasps have our school under siege. And so we can't turn off the heat because the heat is how we have hot water right now.
Oh, really?
For like kids to use to shower when they need to shower.
Yeah.
So the heat was on all day, which meant we had all the windows open, but seemingly outside every window on the first floor there was a wasp nest, and they just wanted to come in and get at those sweet Reese's that we feed to keep the kids from hitting us.
I've heard that for a lot of the school buildings in the Lewiston area, somehow like the main building like controls a lot of the utilities. For all the different major...
Fucking Stalinism is what it is, man.
I know. Somebody was...
Centrally planned heating.
Told me, because I work at one of the schools, a different school, that they could do nothing about the heat because the main building, way on the other end of Lewiston, houses the controls for that.
Yeah. Who planned this shit?
I don't know, but they keep building new schools.
They're masochists. They keep building new schools and just route the heat over to the new one. Just take that pipe and extend it.
Yep. All the resources have to go to like the newest school, so all the schools around it just like get worse and worse until the new school just assimilates them, and then the property value of that school decreases, and then I'm making all this up. I don't know how true any of this is.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, schools being absorbed by other schools.
So,
I had a dream.
Tell me about it.
All right. So, it's my wife and I have bought a house, not in real life, in the dream. Yeah, this is in the dream. My wife and I have bought a house, and it snows, and we want to go borrow a snowblower from a neighbor. So we cross to our neighbor, and we go up and ask her if we can borrow her snowblower. It's like a couple feet of snow. It's one of those days. And she's like, oh, yeah, sure. I just have to go downstairs to plug it in and charge it, which is totally how a snowblower works, right? She's like, come on in, come down with me. And as we're walking down to the basement, she tells us that she's so happy that some nice people moved in after all the bad stuff happened at the house we live at, right? And I think back to the house in the dream, and I realize that it's a house that I know from real life, because when I was finishing high school, 17 or 18 years old, I lived on this certain road. Is kind of on the rural end of suburban, right? So you got multiple houses within walking distance, but there's a good kind of tree separation between them. And our next door neighbors had a break-in happen that resulted in a machete attack
Jesus.
that left a young girl with traumatic brain injury.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the bad stuff. And it turned out we were living in that house.
That's a weird dream.
Yeah, and similar to your dream, where from last week, true believers will remember Curtis's dream from last week's Dreamcast.
I think true believers listen to the previous week's episode before they listen to the current week's
just
episode.
To remind
time,
yourself,
just to get up to speed.
Yeah, well, it's really one continuous conversation. That's how we intend this show to be listened to. Similar to your dream from last time, that like sheer terror that you feel about the shack. That was what I felt about this house, which is not something that I feel about that house in real life. I don't think about that house very often in real life, but in the dream, it became the locus of all evil, and I was terrified of having to go back there. Another weird thing about my dreams is that the houses in my dreams are always these like labyrinths.
Yeah.
That don't make any architectural sense as houses. They don't seem like places where people would live. They seem more like video game levels, like kind of a maze that you go through.
Did it end? Did you get the snowball?
Did the dream end? So the way the dream ended was that we made it to the lowest level of this woman's house, which seemed to be like 3 or 4 levels below ground level. Mm-hmm. And she plugged in the snowblower, and we made our way back up all the levels, and she invited us to stay over for a beer. It was just a nice ending to the dream. It was like the house didn't. Yeah. I felt relieved because I didn't have to go back to the horrible house right away. You know what? This is a weird association, and I don't know if this is true or if I'm putting this back onto the dream kind of in hindsight. But when I think about, there was a very brief portion of the dream where I was actually, Megan and I were inside the house, the bad house. And the way I remember it is like the house from the beginning of Lost Highway. Just like very stark and severe edges and angles, and not a lot of light, or light in some places, but sheer darkness in others. Not an inviting atmosphere, but not an atmosphere that makes it immediately clear why it's so uninviting.
I didn't have any good dreams this past week.
Anything worth remarking on?
I actually don't think so. I think for the first time, I just had a pretty straightforward week.
All right. Well, have you been doing any of the dream? Have you been like fluffing your dreams throughout the day?
No, I do. I still do the thing, before I go to sleep. Mm-hmm. I think about whether it would be nice to have some dreams.
Yep.
And I have written down 1 or 2 of them, but they weren't really. I don't even remember what they were about now.
Yeah,
on my phone.
It can take a while. It can take weeks to months to really get those dreams going. But I am committed, absolutely committed to Dreamcast.
Yes,
that's where this podcast is going. It will no longer be a culture cast.
We can do 50 episodes of culture, and then we'll do 50 of dreams.
What are we going to do the next 50?
I think we got to get to
architecture.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
yeah.
Actually,
we're going to be architecture genius. After examining our dreams every week for a year, we're going to be geniuses of some kind. I don't know what kind of geniuses we'll be, but probably not good. Probably not good ones.
Hopefully, the money will start coming in. That's really.
I'm in it for the cash.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
that's the only reason I do this.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. I think if I wanted money, I'd probably put more effort into it.
If we wanted money, all we would have to do is like take some really extreme political stances and start to publicize them.
Yeah, I don't like being extreme.
No, me either. I'm a middle of the road kind of guy, as you can tell by my monotone voice.
So what are we talking about this week?
We are talking about something that you have known for a while, that this is my first exposure to it. It's the album Pinata by rapper Freddie Gibbs and producer and your spiritual king, Madlib.
Thank you, yes. We sure are.
Give me the intro to Pinata by Freddie Gibbs and Madlib.
Collaborative album by one of the most famous underground hip-hop producers of all time, and a real good rapper. They came out in 2014?
2014, yep.
Yeah. Madlib is mostly a producer, so he has a tendency to work with lots of different MCs.
Over long periods of time. I think this album was made over the course of 3 years.
Yeah. Almost, I think it was, right around 3 years. And Madlib has kind of a strange approach, I guess, to collaborating with people, in that he doesn't really...
He sends them his box set.
He doesn't really. He
sends them his fucking 12-disc box set, and is like, just take whatever beats you want.
That's pretty much how he approaches things. I know he did the same thing. He produced a Kanye West song, I think, "No More Parties in L.A." Okay. And he did the same thing. He approached Kanye and he was like, "Hey, do you want to use one of my songs on your album? Here's 3 albums of beats." So I think with Pinata, he did the same thing. I think he sent Freddie Gibbs around 100 tracks that he had produced. Madlib is one of his aliases is the Loop Digger, and that he collects records. I think his record collection is like 4 rooms of a house. It's huge. And he has like little rules that he sets for himself. He always tries to find samples from songs that most people haven't heard. And anytime he uses a sample from an album, he has to sample something off of every song on the album. And then most of it just gets thrown away, or he'll send, whoever he's working with 800 songs, and then they pick which 20 they like. Yep. I can't imagine. That seems like a lot of work for like what you actually get out of it. But
you figure you listen to the first 10 seconds and you decide if you like it or not.
And like, how long do you think it takes him to make that? And then you like listen to like 10 seconds. You're like, no, not that one.
Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left.
Yeah. But the other thing is that he doesn't have a tendency to work with the people that he's collaborating with. I think I was reading about the album, and I think the way he phrased it is he doesn't want to work with anybody that he has to babysit. Mm-hmm. So he just sends you all these tracks. You pick whichever ones you like. You record your songs. You send the tracks back to Madlib.
He finishes them.
Madlib finishes them. Yeah. Album is complete.
Yep.
So, did you feel that at all listening to it, or did it feel cohesive to you?
Well, it didn't feel especially cohesive or uncohesive. It felt it didn't leave a lot of room for like really out there surprises. Yeah. It was clear that these two guys hadn't talked a lot. They felt a little bit remote, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because you figure like a lot of hip hop tradition is not it's 2 separate spheres, the beats and the rapping. Yeah. And the idea that you should have like these bespoke tracks that are made just for your rhymes, and that you actually like collaborate, or that you make the beats yourself and then rap exactly what your vision was over them, is a little bit new, Yeah.
I think it's interesting to me because I think hip hop kind of started in this place of most people that rapped were like from inner cities and didn't have much money. So I think like that's kind of where it started and came from. And it's interesting now that we're getting to this point where a rapper from, I think, like Indiana can work with a rapper from California. Mm-hmm. I like that it's just crazy that it's changed that much, and you don't have to, the people you work with aren't your friends that you've, started rapping with in high school and stuff. I think that's pretty interesting.
Or they are. Or you've got like an Odd Future situation where you have this clique.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't listened to any Odd Future.
We'll have to do an Odd Future series at some point.
You'll have to help me get my toes
Clue
wet.
You in. But you get your toes wet on Pinata, man.
Is Earl on that one?
Earl Sweatshirt is on Robes. Earl Sweatshirt has my favorite verse on the whole album.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Earl Sweatshirt fan.
Yeah.
I wish I want to be. I have like 2 of his albums, and if you have an album called I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Like to Go Outside, that's like, I want to love that album. Like,
it's a grower.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's not an immediate. Yeah.
So how should we tackle this?
How should we tackle Pinata? We'll get a stick. We'll hit it really hard over and over again until the cocaine comes out.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of which, there's a little fun little excerpt.
Little tidbit. Little Dreamcast extension.
I can't read because there's lots of expletives, which I'm not allowed to use, in Freddie Gibbs' dream analysis.
Yeah, there are a lot of epithets. Call it an analysis. He really, he spends half of this quote talking about what kind of women he likes.
Yeah. But he has it's interesting that we talk about this the week after we discover Dreamcast episode 0.
Yeah, it does feel like we discovered it, didn't it?
Yeah,
we unearthed it.
much
42 episodes led up to Dreamcast. Dreamcast was born, and yeah.
Now the rest of this is just going to fall to the wayside, and we're just going to be
the first stage rocketry can fall. We've hit the fucking stratosphere with Dreamcast.
I don't know. Favorite songs?
Well, what's up with this dream that Freddie?
Oh yeah,
So Freddie Gibbs had a dream about he had this baby. Right. I'm saying Freddie Gibbs' dream from memory of having read his quote about it.
Should I read it and change the words that I can't say?
No, read it and tell me if I'm right or not about it, and correct me on anything that I'm wrong about.
Okay.
So Freddie Gibbs had this dream about he had this baby, and it was the baby's party, right? Like a birthday party, and the baby had a pinata. But whenever was it a bunch of kids at the party, or was it just the baby hitting the pinata?
It looks like just the baby hitting the pinata.
So the baby has a stick and it's hitting the pinata, but all that's coming out of the pinata is cocaine.
Yep.
Is these like, what are they, packets? Does he mention if they're packets of cocaine or if it's just loose powder dropping from it? Or if it's crack rocks. Could be crack rocks.
I guess it says they was just kids playing in the dope. So I guess there's...
Little kids playing in the dope.
Yep.
Yep.
It was little 4-year-old kids hitting dope and pinatas. I don't know. It was a crazy-ass dream, so I just called that shit cocaine pinata.
I would love to sit down and talk to him about that dream a little more.
The best part about that, it reminds me of... This is like maybe a weird analogy, but it reminds me of a Frank Zappa album. Because he says the end of it...
Wristwatch Crisco.
Yeah. Well, he just ends that. He was like... It was a crazy dream, so I called the album Cocaine Pinata. Like, that explains it. Yeah. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. Yeah. He does the thing that a lot of people do when they're discussing their dreams, which is like they get right up to the point where they're going to have like a big realization about their lives based on the dream that they had and why it felt so meaningful. And then they just like, I don't know, it was a crazy fucking dream. It's like that video of Soulja Boy playing Braid, where he's like, I don't know, no real point to it. You just fucking go back in time and shit. And
as soon as you have to like challenge your belief system, you're like, what a crazy dream. I'm just gonna forget about it right now.
Crazy dream, crazy meaningless dream. Now, and I don't think that Freddie Gibbs would necessarily say that it was a crazy meaningless dream. I think Freddie Gibbs probably comes from the David Lynch school of art, where he doesn't want to explain his fucking shit to people, right?
Yeah.
Which no artist should have to.
Sure.
But maybe that's where we start talking about Pinata. Because one of the interesting things about it having been made over the course of, 3 years or so, is that Freddie Gibbs, at the beginning of making Pinata, was a very different Freddie Gibbs, seemingly, from the Freddie Gibbs who finished Pinata.
I think that's fair. You have... I don't know how old... He's not very old. I mean, he can't be...
He's like 35, I think.
Yeah. So,
just older than us. I think he was born 78.
When it was made, I think he was just at this point in his life where he had some albums before this, but I don't think any of them had hit that level of success that Pinata would hit. Especially, I think Madlib, people think Madlib tends to like bring out the best in the people that he works with. So I had mentioned last week, one of the things to kind of keep in mind while listening to this was that it's mostly safe to assume that a lot of the super hardcore stuff that Freddie Gibbs talks about on this album is probably more true than false. There's a lot of... He's been a pretty intense guy.
Well, seemingly if he hasn't done it, he's at least seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, when he started recording this, he was much closer to that than, 3 years later when he finished it and his fame and success climbed as he was working on it. I think thuggin' be damned. I don't think a lot of people are dealing hard drugs like just for the fun of it. I think usually if you're getting what you need out of life and you don't have to deal drugs, I don't know. I don't deal drugs, so I don't know. But it is interesting. I feel like on some songs, maybe this is just like cherry picking, but I do feel like on some songs you can kind of guess. It feels like this was earlier or later towards the recording process, but
it does feel like the album as a whole has an arc to it.
Yeah.
Where at the beginning it's it feels like a celebration of thug life, of the life of a drug dealer. And then as the album progresses, it becomes more of a it's tinged with nostalgia.
Yeah. I really liked how they kind of had they put that song Thuggin' at like the track 8 mark around there. And I really like that you live through these stories that Gibbs has, and then he's very reminiscent about this lifestyle, but that introspection starts to go back further and warmer, and it kind of ends on a nicer note of just not so much the hard drug life, but just like being younger and the sweeter aspects of the drug game, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, what
do you like about this album?
I think it's some of Madlib's best production. He put out a beat tape called Pinata Beats, strangely enough, that I bought, and I enjoy listening to that. I would say almost just as much as listening to the Freddie Gibbs version. Some of those beats are so like cinematic. They just feel so full, and that they kind of like tell a story on their own. Specifically like Uno is one that's just a very like bomb as well, just very dense, and I like the stories that he tells. But I think now in hip hop too, there's so many like atmospheric is a word that gets tossed around a lot when people are reviewing albums, and it just leaves a lot of spacier beats that are minimalist. And I think that for only being 4 years old, this album feels...
Madlib did a good job.
Yeah, it just feels very dense and just compact and rich, and I really enjoy the beats. And then I had mentioned last week that the Freddie Gibbs has some really good flow, and his ability to just like hop on a beat and just like flow with it, I find it very like hypnotizing. So I really like the beats, and then I get lost in this hypnotizing flow, and then when I actually pay attention to the stories, it just, every level that I dig into, it's still enjoyable as it goes down deeper.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the other thing that I really like about Pinata is I had nothing on my mind.
We didn't just pause there.
We paused it to open a window. It's so hot.
Beautiful outside.
Yeah, it is so nice outside.
So one thing I will say, though, that I really enjoy about this album is that I feel like even though it's so strong in its storytelling, you can't really call it like a concept album. I like that it doesn't really tell like one cohesive story. Mm-hmm. It just feels like a memoir, or like if you were, I think a lot of people use, the words like, they compare it to a movie, cinematic, or they call it like a blaxploitation film.
Oh yeah,
on vinyl.
And I haven't heard that.
I think I totally just ripped that off the Wikipedia page. I think it's on there somewhere. But I like that each story is so contained to each song that altogether it builds this big story, but it's not this linear story. And I for listening, I like that, because with like hardcore concept albums, I feel weird like, I'll just start on track 3 because that's a good song. You kind of have to have like the intro and then the build up and play through the whole thing.
What are some of your favorite concept albums?
Let's see. Guar's Beyond Hell. Mm-hmm. That's a big one. I don't know if you would call Dark Side of the Moon a concept album.
I wouldn't.
Okay, so not Dark Side of the Moon then. Man, I don't know. I'd have to look.
You ever hear Queensryche?
No.
The concept album Queensryche made? I forget what it's called, but it's pretty good. If you want something that's like a full blown, like, you ever listen to Coheed and Cambria? Like their concept albums? Stories that are just laden with bullshit.
Yeah.
Just like such beautiful comic book ass bullshit. Yeah, Queensryche is, man, I wish I could remember what that album's called. I am a failure. I haven't listened to it in 10 years, but I was very into it when I was into metal. And it kind of matches the level of concept album that I like, which is like just completely blown out, terrible, love it.
There's actually this was what I should have shared for my catch up thing. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite bands, the Acacia Strain, they're going on tour this summer. This made me feel so old. It was like heartbreaking. They're going on tour this summer, and the tour is a 10-year anniversary of an album that I went to the release party of. And I was like,
nice.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm elderly now. That's what that is. And the album is Continent, and I think that's maybe closer to the Pinata side of a concept album, but the whole thing is kind of how I interpret it, just a metaphor for discovering your own kind of like, I hate to say the word nihilism because I don't fucking know anything about nihilism, but just giving up on things that you thought mattered and kind of like building your own world. So I guess if you were to consider that a concept album, that would be
sort of a Nietzschean concept album.
I guess.
A particular reading of Nietzsche. Love it when we both take a drink at the same time.
Just 8 seconds of dead silence that I will not remember.
Nope.
Clip out.
That's staying in. That is staying in. What are some of your favorite tracks off Pinata?
Oh man, Deeper.
Mm-hmm. There's one that tells a story. That might be the story of the album, because I mean the rest of them are like Freddie Gibbs is the best rapper alive. Freddie Gibbs is great at dealing drugs. Freddie Gibbs gets a lot of pussy. Like it's your standard like rap bragging tropes. And Freddie Gibbs does have his own personal perspective that he lends to it. It's not quite to my taste. I like it a little bit more. I like for a rapper to engage in that stuff by like grabbing it by the metaphysical underpinnings of it and kind of dragging those tropes farther back into artistic history. But Freddie Gibbs, as far as rappers who are like hard-nosed street dudes, kind of bragging about how good they are at being hard-nosed street dudes, I think Freddie Gibbs does an admirable job of it. But so Deeper, good track.
Has a good little kind of, a good little twist on the end that I didn't, I guess, see coming the first time I listened to it when I started to get in. That was actually one where I got to the end of the track and I had like heard the last like line, and then I was like, wait, what? And I had to like go back and like really pay attention to the whole thing. But I really like High.
I love Danny Brown on
Danny
High.
Brown kills it on that one. His like extended verse, like Freddie Gibbs does the first 2 verses and it ends so the chorus can loop a few times, and Danny Brown just raps over the chorus when you expect him to stop, and it's just this like level of like explosive intensity that really just shines on that. I also really like Heralds. I would put that up with Deeper, where you kind of, it's one of those things where anyone that raps can talk about how great they are or how many drugs they sold. Like, I don't know. But I really like when you get these little nuggets of like, wow, that's something that kind of really, legitimizes your story. And I think
it's like, whoa, drug dealers are people too.
Yeah.
They like chicken too.
And it's just like, they don't really, when you watch Scarface, you don't really think about the fact that a lot of drug dealers like, we got to stop at and get food while we're driving and dealing everywhere, and we got to meet people at places. So we always, you can meet at this chicken place. Mm-hmm. There's a video for that song that actually they filmed it in that restaurant.
I probably should have watched that video before this podcast.
I feel like it's like, I guess it's cool for free advertising, but like, is that the advertising you want for your... So it's a real restaurant called Harold's that he used to hang out at and get chicken fingers at when he was driving around dealing.
Man, I'm this close to not being a vegetarian anymore.
We'll have to...
Like, for real.
I want to go down that road with you. We'll maybe after the cast.
I wonder how much the song Harold's had to do with that, by the way, because he makes chicken and like bread stuck to the bottom. Sounds so good.
And then, so Bomb, the beat is like 10 out of 10, and I love Raekwon, but he definitely is not like on the same page as like Freddie. He just literally like delivered a random verse that he had like written, and it's very apparent. And then I'm just going through Shitsville. You're just
going through one track. They're all my favorite tracks.
Thuggin', both 10 out of 10.
I really like Shitsville.
Yeah, that one really also shines through.
Is that the one where he says, "If you cut me, then I bleed"?
Yeah.
Yeah, you motherfuckers are the same as me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really
Important to keep in mind.
I like that, I'm no drug dealer, but... And then Uno I liked a lot, and...
I don't like Uno.
You don't like
I
Uno?
think Uno's fucking boring.
God damn it.
Sorry, Freddie.
The only thing I don't like about Uno is that there's, like, kind of a subtle, like, why can't I think of the word? Anti-gay? That's not the...
Homophobic?
Homophobic, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's kind of a homophobic jab, like, stuck in there, and I don't like that.
I didn't even notice that. I just think brag tracks need to be, like... Brag tracks need to be... It's fucking... Well, when the album came out, it was 2014. Even then, brag tracks needed to be better than Uno to be worth mentioning.
All right, we're getting... This is going to get bad if we don't move. So,
also, Uno Gets in the Way of Robes, which is one of my favorite songs
good.
on the album.
The whole last, like, from Broken through Pinata, the last track, the one of the main criticisms of this album is that the end of it is kind of weighed down in this nostalgic stuff that's not as, like, satisfying as the hard-hitting first half of the album. And it's hard for me because I feel like each track, I like each track, and I can't think of any tracks on here that I would take out, but, like, it is a little much, 6 songs back to back, I think.
Here's what I think about that. I think a lot of hip-hop critics are very interested in the fantasy of the drug-dealing lifestyle. So they perhaps fawn a little bit over much on material that is of that nature, and discard the poetic value of Freddie Gibbs. Given his city pride, he spends like 3 fucking songs just talking about how much he loves L.A. It's great.
So you think
which is weird because, like, he's not from L.A.
Yeah,
he's from fucking Indiana, but still.
So do you think that as soon as Freddie actually starts to say something real and heartfelt,
people are like, no, not that.
Get that out of here.
Yeah.
We want the drugs.
Yeah, give us more empty drug dealing fantasies.
Tell us about how you sold drugs to your sister so she wouldn't fillet a man to get it for free.
Exactly. Tell us more hard hitting real life drug stories, Freddie. Fuck off.
I just assume every, like, internet rap critic is just like me, just white and nerdy, and like, we want to hear about the drugs, please.
Tell us more about drug fantasies. You lived the life we wish we could. Man, I'm coming out with some fucking takes.
Getting intense.
We gotta send this to Fantano.
Yep.
That's how we're gonna get famous.
Yep.
That's what people want.
Melon's a dangerous guy to hook up with. He takes memes too far. I'm a big fan of his channel.
Yeah.
But I think it's getting him in hot water when he doesn't know when to quit sometimes.
Yeah, I got some thoughts about them. We don't need to get into
after the show.
This Fantano cast is for later. The Fantano cast.
Okay.
We'll call it Tanfano.
Yeah. Dream Thinny cast.
Dream Thinny cast Fantano.
Sure.
Okay. This album follows one of my favorite trends in hip-hop, which is that it's like a tradition. We saw this on the what's his name? Oh, it's not Absol. Schoolboy Q.
Yep.
We saw this on the Schoolboy Q album too, and on the recent I think it was Run the Jewels 2, where it's like one of your last couple songs, your second to last proper track needs to be a love song. It's gotta happen. It's gotta happen.
Yeah, I actually hadn't noticed that trend.
It's always it's label interference is at least what was starting it. Mm-hmm. It's like you got to have a love song on there because that's one of the things people are expecting from a rap album. It's like art as commerce.
Danny Brown's handstand.
And Shame, I think, fits that bill pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a good song.
Yeah, like that song's fine. But
uplifting message. It's like you don't need to be ashamed. It doesn't need to be a walk of shame.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the fucking elephant in the room?
Well, yeah. What is the elephant in the room?
The elephant in the room is, oh gosh, Mac Miller?
Mac Miller is on this album.
Mac Miller's verse is the worst verse I've ever heard a rapper deliver.
All right, so here's...
And it closes the album. It's the last verse on the album, and it's the actual worst rap verse I've ever heard. It's worse than when I taught 6th grade, and the kids would spend their free time rapping, just freestyling over hitting the tables to make a beat. Mac Miller's verse is worse than that.
So
projecting the image of an intellectual. Oh, I read A Tale of Two Cities. Go fuck yourself, Mac Miller.
I can't pick that verse off the top of my head, and here's the thing about why. Posse tracks are hard.
I love posse tracks.
I love good posse tracks. When you have "Protect Your Neck" by the Wu-Tang Clan or "Parental Discretion is Advised" by NWA. Those are some of my
Mr.
favorite.
Motherfucking Esquire has a song called "The Last Huzzah." It's the best posse track I've ever heard. We'll have to. I could listen to me. Listen to me when I say this, because you're not going to believe me. Ask me to repeat myself if I need to. We could do a whole episode about that one song.
Pinata or the Esquire one?
The Mr. Motherfucking Esquire song, "The Last Huzzah" remix, featuring no less than fucking LP from Run the Jewels. We're talking. You've got. Oh gosh, you've got Das Racist in the mix, okay? You've got some other fucking guy, I can't even remember his name, and you've got Mr. Motherfucking Esquire.
Yeah.
And great music video. We'd have to include the music video on the episode.
You know what I think we should do?
What?
We should put them up against.
Mm-hmm.
We'll hash it out on the podcast. We'll put that against "Triumph" by the Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put this on the list.
10 members, doing a posse track that has Inspector Deck's verse on that is literally one of the greatest hip hop verses of all time.
We're making a lot of big claims on this episode.
The whole Inspector Deck does was one of the, after I would say probably second to Rakim, maybe kind of pioneered internal rhyming.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, listen, poets pioneered.
I know, but I mean
fucking centuries. In hip hop, you're saying?
Okay, but I'm just saying we're gonna have to. I mean, you got I don't know the whole verse, but it's I bomb atomically.
Okay.
Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses can't define how I be dropping these mockeries.
Yeah, it sounds like fucking Mac Miller's verse to me.
Oh my god, that's just insulting. But anyway, that brings me back to Pinata.
Yep.
A posse cut has to be really good to be able to keep the listener through at least 4 verses, usually with a hook in between each one. And at some point...
This one does not have a hook in between them, by the way.
That's true.
And I think the best posse cuts don't. It's just verse into verse, in my opinion.
At some point in this track, I get bored and turn it off.
It's at the beginning of Mac Miller's
verse. I don't know. It very well could be.
Hopefully you're making it through Michi Darko's verse, because that dude spits. I don't know if you listen to Flatbush Zombies at all, but...
I can't fucking get into it.
You can't get into...
I've tried so hard.
Their latest album, Vacation in Hell.
I haven't listened to that one. I thought the cover and name of 3001, A Laced Odyssey, was the coolest thing ever. And I listened to it and I was like, man, I really wish I liked this more.
They don't quite live up to the aesthetic yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're still aiming upward towards that, but if you consider them calling their shot, someday the music will match the aesthetic.
Well, I hope, but what happened was I listened to it and I didn't love it, and then on hip hop heads, I saw people were oh, it's not as good as what Drugs or Better Off Dead, I think, are their 2 big mixtapes before they had a studio album. And I listened to those and I was just no. Doesn't do much for me either, but yeah. I'll listen to anything again. A lot of my favorite things I didn't like that much when I first experienced them.
Fucking Earl Sweatshirt, Flatbush Zombies. You've got a busy week ahead of you, Curtis.
I gotta watch our next movie 3 times. So I gotta watch the theatrical, the extended.
Don't Curtis, don't do that to yourself. You're gonna hate that
documentary.
You're gonna hate that movie after you watch it twice in a week.
No. Yeah, Pinata, not a cool beat, not a huge fan. I'll have to break down Mac Miller's
bullshit verse.
I'm going to write on the list right now. I'm going to write Posse Cut Showdown.
Yeah, I've got it on my list too. Triumph versus The Last Huzzah, right?
Uh-huh.
Yep. We're doing it. We'll listen to them both right after this podcast also, if you have time.
Oh, I have nothing but time when it comes to the Wu-Tang Clan.
I should hope so. You've got 1,000 Wu-Tang Clan affiliated albums over here.
That's true. And a PS1 game. Which I've never played, actually. I just needed to have it for some reason. They only have one PS. They only have one. So
what are you gonna do?
Might as well buy it.
What are you gonna do?
I don't know. What should we?
Are we done?
We can be done. This is only like 40 minutes long.
It's about an album.
Yeah.
If we talked about an album for longer than or as long as, I mean, how long is a fucking Fantano video? Like 3 seconds?
Yeah. Man, are you throwing some shade
just the big fart noise
Fantano here?
Anthony Fantano, I love you.
Yeah, we know you're listening.
We know you listen to everything.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan, even though I tweet at you to review albums and you've never responded to them or review the albums.
I think I called you a coward for not reviewing the new Ilsa album, and I stand by that, Fantano.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put in the title that we call out the needle drop. Maybe he'll respond to us.
Oh, guaranteed he won't.
No, he's bigger. He's better than us.
He's a busy
bigger.
man. He's on another level.
So, yeah, you know what? I think Pinata is really good. I think it's a instant classic, and I highly recommend if you didn't listen to it before this episode, you should go listen to it a few times. And then just, Freddie Gibbs is totally cool, but just do yourself a favor and just start listening to Madlib.
Get the box set.
There are some cool starter guides online about how to approach his discography because he has like...
It's like getting into woodworking.
Yeah, I mean, he has like 20
like
different names of releases and stuff, so...
Yeah. I can't do that.
Yesterday's new quintet.
I can't fucking...
Man.
I can't do that. Madlib is to you as Flying Lotus is to me.
Do you know how much you're hurting my feelings
I
today?
am a Flying Lotus completionist.
I gotta get in... I listened to that album.
Yeah.
And it was... I think like in that mindset, I was just like, this is too crazy for me right now.
You want density? Flying Lotus is dense. I listen to Madlib and I'm like, he uses the same 3 times in one song. It's the same verses, the same choruses.
Oh my god.
He's good.
He's good.
He's good.
He's good.
He's
Ben
overrated.
Says. He is not overrated. Welcome to Feelings Cast, where we just hurt
My
each other.
endorphins are morphin, absorbent energy. Original copy, A Tale of Two Cities gets read to me. Reading Emerson novels, eating some Belgian waffles. Some powder go up my nostrils. My dick going down her tonsils. This is the Mac Miller verse that you apparently never.
I thought you were just like rap roasting me. For
This is a dream I had, Curtis. I wanted to tell you about it on this Dreamcast.
I wrote this really awful verse.
Mm-hmm. In my dream. This generation corrupt, these people brainwashed with evil. My music is more cerebral, exploring just what you need to. So this your Exodus, Church of the Methodist, beating up the pussy, have her screaming like a exorcist.
Can I say that I was gonna go with a food analogy, but I just won't.
No, I would love to hear your food analogy if you've still got it on tap.
I like a lot of the words that he rhymed. So it's like, good ingredients.
There is no jerk-off motion big enough for me to express my feelings about that verse and what you just said.
Well...
The ingredients. Okay, I see where the food
good
analogy...
ingredients, but just,
better ingredients, better rap versus Papa John's.
Mac Miller's Tale of Two Cities was read to him.
Apparently it's a fucking reference to House of Cards Season 2. Right?
Who's got time for that?
Who has time to watch a television show?
That's especially when you can't watch, because you're never going to know how it ends.
Oh, yeah. Kevin Spacey disgraced. Yeah. Who should play that role when they inevitably bring it back to finish it?
You think they're going to bring it back to finish it?
Who should play it if they do? Who could do a Southern accent dumb enough?
Matthew McConaughey.
Oh man! All right, no, we bring back House of Cards. We finish it off. What would it be? Season 6, 7. Yeah, we bring back House of Cards. Finish it off, but it's True Detective Season 3 also.
Uh-huh.
This is my design.
I think you should write this down.
I got a lot of shit to write, okay?
And we'll pitch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll help you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can help me make a couple of my dream movies. And then we'll, like, Kevin Smith, Scott Mosier this thing.
Yep. Good. We'll get a successful podcast out of it.
I don't see that happening.
Not with all this shade we're throwing on this episode.
Yeah.
I'm just burning bridges.
Yeah. I want to be friends with Melon, so...
Yeah?
I mean, I don't know. No, I guess not. 'Cause he's too risky. He says too much.
He's a hot potato.
Puts himself out there too much.
He's a hot commodity.
Let's wrap this up.
All right.
Well, we got to listen to some beef tracks. I mean, posse cuts, rather.
We're making a beef track.
Are we going to have to make a beef track?
This whole episode is one big beef track.
I'll just put a beat behind the whole thing when I upload it.
Just like bleh, 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 bleh. Just keyboard pig noises.
Yep, that's what I'm going to do. Yep. Let's wrap this up. What are we talking about next week?
Apocalypse Now.
All right.
This is going to be a weird transition, considering the future project where we just cut all these together into one long conversation.
Yeah.
That's going to be one of the weirdest transitions we're going to have.
I saw this, like, within the past year.
And for the first time.
I'm pretty sure it was you and or Megan that turned me onto it.
Yeah,
I've never seen it before.
That's possible. I think it was Megan.
Yep. And I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to watch probably the extended one.
Yep.
Apparently, I have a friend that also really loves this movie. And apparently there's, like a fan-made, like, even more extended that he, like, has, it's like a 6-hour, like, every bit of footage from this film has been found and, like...
That's too much.
In. Is it? Can it be too much?
Quantity versus quality at some point has to come in.
There's no rules.
It's like sometimes cuts happen for a reason. Like a good reason.
Yeah.
You don't just need to throw everything in there. Though, insofar as Apocalypse Now is an endurance film, making it 6 hours long probably would make it harder to endure.
So we're trying to talk about that.
Yep, I think we're talking about the redo.
Are we having a guest?
We are having a guest on the show. My wife.
Yes, again.
Megan. Yep.
Shout out to your wife, who was the guest on, off the top of my head, my favorite episode of B&C Till It H. Maybe
Tom Waits.
Maybe I could think of another one, but I really like that one.
Yeah.
So,
what is happening out there?
I hope everybody heard that. Here's it. I don't know what that is. We need to stop. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K. Listen to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. Follow Ben and Curt on Twitter.
Ben_and_Curt.
I was really bothered by that. We need to... All right. We will see you guys next week. Talk about Apocalypse Now. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Anthony.
Jesus.